Welcome back to Cord Cutting Today, where we break down some of the biggest stories happening in the world of cord cutting, including today, the end of Comcast, Spectrum, and other cable TV companies as we know them. There's reports out there that they could be losing tens of millions of subscribers in the next few years, and they have 9 straight years of losing. We'll tell you what's happening and why Comcast and Spectrum, as we know it, may be changing forever. Warner Brothers Discovery is fresh off reports that Paramount's trying to buy them. Now it's being reported that they're actively meeting with investment bankers trying to see if they can create a bidding war for Warner Bros. Discovery as they hope to entice Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and others to bid to buy the struggling media company. I'll tell you what I mean when I say struggling and what this means for you. Also with this, for a long time, piracy has been long suspected to come from the inside of some of these studios, while now a former DVD company employee who helped make DVDs for popular movies and television shows has been sentenced for stealing and pirating content online. We'll tell you about these stories and a whole lot more coming up in a quick second. But first, hey, if you like what we do here, I have a second channel where I talk about similar things like this, but in non-cord cutting way, where I break down news stories and more which I find interesting to me. There's sometimes stories that don't fit videos here that I just want to give my opinion on. Check out in the first pinned comment over to my second channel. Thanks for helping us hit 35,000 subscribers over there. Let's get that up to 100. If you could check it out, appreciate your support. We got a video talking about 5 new things coming to Walmart they're doing to try to compete with Amazon. Some big changes at Amazon also happening, and other videos like that over on our other channel. Check it out. But as always, you can find a link to every story I talk about here in the show notes down below and in the first pinned comment. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, do one or both. Lets YouTube know you enjoy what we do here. All right, Comcast, Spectrum, and other cable TV companies have now lost customers for 9 straight years. It must be really scary to be a cable executive waking up every morning knowing when you go to bed you're going to have fewer customers than you did when you had breakfast. That's not a world that many people want to live in. This comes from S&P Global Market Intelligence that says that since from over 80% of Americans watching cable television in 2011, now just 34.4% of them pay or watch traditional cable television networks at the end of 2024 with this. Few things here. They also predict that over the next few years, as many as 20 million fewer people will be paying for cable or watching cable television networks. And here comes the big issue. How long can Spectrum and Comcast continue this? I know I often draw the ire of cable executives when I say this, but you see Comcast, Warner Bros. Discovery, spinning off, Comcast and Warner Bros. Discovery spinning off their cable networks into independent companies and trying to get them off their books. How long until they're trying to get rid of their cable television service? Spectrum is getting rid of the traditional cable. They're trying to push customers over to their streaming packages, which is cheaper and better for them to run. I suspect Comcast is going to have to make some difficult decisions about what it wants to do for the future of its cable television service. Now, it doesn't mean that the companies are necessarily going away, but I do think in 5 years or so, what Spectrum and what Comcast looks like now will be very different. Spectrum is trying this, we'll just keep adding streaming services, bundle more and more and more into it. And I think Spectrum is missing a big issue here. The reality of why Spectrum and others struggle is not the fact that they didn't have Netflix bundled in or Peacock or whatever. It has to do with the price and how people watch content changing. I don't think putting more and more content in, continue to jack up your price, is going to be a viable future in the long run. At some point, people don't watch all this, and if they can pick just the 3 or 4 streaming services they like, in the end, it's going to be a devastating change for them. Mark my words, I may be wrong, but come back here in 5 years, I think Comcast and Spectrum will look very different. I think live television channels, I think many of them are going to go away over the next few years. We'll have to keep an eye on it and see what happens, but mark my words, Spectrum and Comcast are in real trouble. Speaking of being in real trouble, Warner Bros. Discovery has been struggling. They had loaded with debt after Discovery and Warner Brothers merged, and while they've been knocking that down and chipping away at it. They are going to be spinning off, they talked about maybe in April, but definitely early next year, all of its cable TV networks into an independent company because they want them off the books because they don't look good when the stockholders look at their books. But Paramount is reportedly preparing with its new merged release with Skydance an offer to buy Warner Brothers Discovery to create a massive media giant. Now, Warner Brothers Discovery is reportedly interested in that, and it's actually met with investment banks to talk about how they get other companies to try to bid to create a bidding war. And primarily listed, according to a report from the New York Times, New York Post, I apologize, who's been very good recently on their sources. They have repeatedly broke stories this year on TV and streaming and the like, well before they happened. But according to this report, they are specifically targeting companies like Amazon, Apple, and Netflix to see if they are interested in buying Warner Brothers Discovery. It'd be interesting to see if they try to break it out. A few things here. Splitting the company in half could be an effort to do that, right? Get rid of the cable networks that people don't want in a deal. Keep the studio and the streaming service HBO Max, and maybe just sell that part and then let the cable networks just kind of, straggle along until they shut down. We'll keep an eye on this, but I do believe there's at least going to be a bidding process on Warner Bros. Discovery. Does not necessarily mean it'll be a deal that Warner Bros. Executives board and stockholders are going to be willing to accept, but at least there are companies looking at it. All right, a lot of news to cover. Let's keep moving here. Former DVD employee company sentenced after pirating DVDs to online. So a customer or an employee there has been sentenced to 57 months in prison working at a company in Tennessee that processed DVDs or manufactured DVDs and Blu-rays. He would take them, rip them, or get the source file directly and then post them online for piracy. And they were able to track them down. He stole movies like Dune, Black Widow, Venom, Spider-Man No Way Home, and others, and led to tens of millions of downloads and estimated losses of the copyright owners of tens of millions of dollars, according to the judge. A few things with this. It's been long suspected there was a source somewhere in there leaking them, and it seems like they found them. I'll be interested to find out if there's more, but continuing, I've talked about this a lot. As studios start losing money, when they were making money, they didn't care so much about piracy. Now that they're losing money, they care a lot about piracy, and they're spending a lot of money to shut it down. It is a game of whack-a-mole, but studios seem to be in it for the long haul. We'll wait and see what happens. All right, over the weekend, and by the way, I hope you had a great weekend. A lot of big things happened in TV history. It's this September, a lot of shows premiering in history, but a few big ones. 40 years ago, over the weekend, the Golden Girls first premiered. Any Golden Girl fans? Confession, I hated it as a kid when my parents would watch it. Now that I'm an adult, I think it's hilarious. It's funny how sometimes your viewpoint on those things change over time. But also 59 years ago over the weekend, the Monkees premiered. The manufactured pop band, still wildly popular, is now streaming, or now 59 years old. Speaking of streaming though, it's very hard to find the Monkees. A lot of the DVDs and Blu-rays are out of print and very expensive. I saw a complete series, I think Blu-ray, for over $200 on Amazon. They do have a handful of episodes on their official YouTube channel, but I wasn't able to quite figure out what exactly was causing it to be very limitedly available. Is there a legal streaming option to watch the Monkees? I didn't really find one to find the entire series. And again, the Blu-rays and DVDs seem to be extremely expensive. There is a handful of episodes streaming for free on their YouTube channel. Link in the show notes if you want to learn more about that. But I thought that was interesting. Their media rights are still a big problem that makes it hard at times to find popular shows from years past. Speaking of streaming problems, in our next story, NBA says the league has highlighted its concerns over growing costs of streaming. Now, this comes as they just struck their new TV deal that's seen a lot of their games go to streaming. It's funny, they got their big paycheck, but now they're concerned about the cost of it for their viewers. I still think that in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see several major sports ditch the traditional television model and ditch the middleman on this by having places like ABC, NBC, Fox, etc. produce their sporting coverage and instead go direct to consumer by offering their own streaming services where they produce the games, where they have the color commentary, and they do everything and make all the money themselves. We'll see what happens here, but I do find it very interesting that the NBA recently just had a massive payday by their new TV deal. It sees the NBA moving back to NBC this year and other places, but now they're concerned about streaming. Keep an eye on this though. This deal doesn't last forever. NFL here in a few years has the right to opt out early and see what the NFL does. I think it's too soon for the NFL to try to ditch television. I think that easy money coming from broadcast and stream platforms is too tempting. But I think on their next media rights cycle, sometime in the 2030s or wherever it will be the time where I think the NFL and other leagues seriously consider ditching cable television, ditching broadcast TV networks, and just saying, hey, one flat fee, kind of like NFL Sunday Ticket, and you get everything from us through the NFL app or whatever it will be called at that point. We'll wait and see what happens. But I think how sports are going to happen is starting to change. We're feeling the pressure. Just a little too soon before we see the massive change I think many of us want. All right, a few other stories that really stood out to me, and you can find more coverage of stories like this over on my other channel. Check out the first linked one. Johns Hopkins announced a breakthrough in smaller microchips that will allow chips to become cheaper, using specifically metal organic materials to make smaller, cheaper, more effective chips. Now, what does that mean? Smaller, cheaper? Well, for one, help reduce the cost of electronics. For two, put electronics into smaller and smaller things. That watch you have struggles because it's only so big. If the chips inside of it can be smaller, it can have more of them in there, have more power, more processing, and more with it. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, well, yes, they've discovered it. It's years before we'll probably see this widespread implementation. Technologies are expensive at first. Find them, we have to figure them out, refine them, find some of the glitches and bugs, and try to figure out how to develop for it. But this is a massive breakthrough that a lot of companies have been trying to get. This was posted by Johns Hopkins University on September 13th of this year. And if it pans out, could make smaller electronics much cheaper going forward. All right, next up. Now, this one was just interesting. I won't talk about a lot, but NASA's confirmed another moon landing. Yes, we've gone back to the moon. This time, a private American spacecraft called Blue Ghost 1 made a landing near Mars's in the Marine Consortium. I'm not going to go get into all this, but this was a joint effort between NASA and a private company. It's really cool. I'm a big space nut. I find it interesting seeing us go back to the moon. You want to learn more about that probe we just sent back as we get ready to send humans back there. And lastly, Amazon says a bug has caused select Echo Show devices to eat gigabytes of data. Now they say they're working on it, and which is cache costs large images using gigabytes of data. Now, big deal, right? It's just downloading gigabytes of data. Well, if you are on a data cap, this is a big issue. Now, Amazon says they're fixing it, but this to me is a major reason why data caps need to go away. Because the consumers that have an Echo Show in their home did not intend to be downloading gigabytes and gigabytes of data, helping push them towards a data cap that could cost them a lot of money. I know many internet providers are getting rid of them. Comcast is phasing them out on some newer plans. But I think their data caps in today's day and age are nothing more than just an attempt to get extra cash out of unaware customers who mistakenly go over a data cap with things that not even what they were doing. They weren't like streaming 4K movies. They just had an Echo Show that had a glitch in it, downloading gigabytes of data a day. I'll put a link to all these stories down below in the show notes and in the first pinned comment. But hey, I'm so thankful everybody's here. We just had an amazing August. September's off to a great start. We really do appreciate your support. Until next time, take care, be safe. I'll be back again real soon.